Ahoy there! Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another video for Eve Echoes. And today's video is going to be a little bit different, as it's kind of a sounding off video. I've got a couple of ideas that I want to sort of bounce off the community, see what you guys think, and I would love to have your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below so I can decide whether or not this is something that, say, I pass on to the developers, or if it's just considered a generally bad idea in inverted commas. Anyway, the concept basically came from some conversations that I was having on the Eve Echoes official Discord and on my own Discord, plus with some people in direct messages, and it was sparked by a simple question that someone asked on the community Discord, which was this. If you have a look at the different skills in the skill tree in Eve Echoes, you'll notice that, for example, for lasers, you get small laser operation, small laser upgrade, then you get medium laser operation, medium laser upgrade, large laser operation, large laser upgrade, and capital laser operation and capital laser upgrade, and that's it. And the same is true for railguns, for cannons, and for missiles. But when you get down to drones, in addition to like the small drone operation and upgrade, medium drone operation and upgrade, large drone operation and upgrade, at the very bottom, you also have the drone skill. So as a drone pilot, you have to have an additional skill that is going to be giving you additional effects. In this case, things like the amount of drones that you can launch and the range that you can launch them from. This is not really an optional skill for a drone pilot, which means if you just want to use small drones, you need to have small drone operation, small drone upgrade, and drone, whereas you don't need 3 skills for any of the other weapons. So that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. If you do enjoy it, let me know by hitting like on the video, subscribe to the channel for all things Eve Echoes and Eve Online, and if you really want to help go the extra mile to keep this content coming, then head across to Patreon, linked at the bottom of the screen and in the description down below. Anyway, with all that said and done, first of all, let's jump across to Eve Online just to sort of give a comparison here. Here in Eve Online, skills are very different to how they are in Eve Echoes. So if I jump into the skill tree, you can kind of see what's going on here, and it's confusing, it's crazy. And I want to say right off the bat, I am not looking to bring Eve Online's complexity into Eve Echoes. I love Eve Online for its complexity, but I understand that that is a different product. It's a different thing for a different group of people, whereas Eve Echoes is much more simplified and streamlined, and I love that about Echoes. That's one of the key things that I really enjoy. Now, to talk about what I'm getting at here, basically, for an example, if we're talking about using small cannons, you have small cannon operation and small cannon upgrade. Now, small cannon operation is going to increase the amount of damage that your small cannons do, and it's going to increase their tracking speed. Small cannon upgrade will also increase your small cannon's damage by a slightly smaller amount than operations would, but it's going to also increase their accuracy and their optimal range. Now, in Eve Online, this is very, very different. If I were to scroll down here, for example, and we're going to have a look at, under gunnery, I was in the right place, and go down to small projectile turret. Here you can see that this skill is the operation of small projectile turrets. It's a 5% bonus to small projectile turret damage per level. That one skill just gives you damage. It doesn't give you any tracking, it doesn't give you any accuracy fall off, it doesn't give you any of your optimal range either. If you want those, you need to have a look at things like, for example, motion prediction. Motion prediction is an improved ability at hitting moving targets. It's a 5% bonus per skill level to weapon turret tracking speeds. Rapid firing is a 4% bonus per skill level to weapon turret rate of fire. Sharpshooter is a 5% bonus to weapon optimal range. And there's also surgical strike somewhere further down here. There it is, which is a 3% bonus per skill level to the damage of all weapon turrets, and the percentage obviously changes with your, there we are. So basically, here, when you're using these skills, and we've got trajectory analysis, that's another one there, for 5% accuracy fall-off and stuff like this. When you are training a weapon, you're also going to be training these generic skills. Whether you're training lasers, whether you're training railguns or cannons, you are going to probably want to have things like motion prediction. If you're going to be using the, well, not small snub-nosed in EVE Online, they're blasters, but basically small snub-nosed railguns, autocannons, or pulse lasers, you're going to be wanting to use motion prediction to get you that additional tracking speed. If you're using autocannons, you're probably going to want to have motion prediction, along with things like sharpshooter to increase the optimal range, surgical strike, trajectory analysis there is a big one for the accuracy fall off, stuff like this. You have skills that are additional to just the weapon skill. Eve Echoes rolls a lot of these skills into one. Now, the main reason that this sort of then comes to mind is we were talking about lasers. And there's also this skill here called Controlled Bursts. This gives a 5% reduction in capacity need of weapon turrets per skill level. Now, obviously, I'm a cannon pilot here on EVE Online, so I haven't trained this skill because cannons don't use capacitor. But if you're using railguns or especially lasers, this is a vital skill as it reduces the amount of capacitor that your turrets use. Ultimately, in EVE Echoes, however, we'll notice that if you have a look at things like small laser upgrade, small laser operation, none of these reduce capacitor. There is no skill in EVE Echoes that reduces the amount of capacitor that your lasers are going to use, or your railguns are going to use, in fact. There is no skill to just generically improve your tracking or your optimal range or your accuracy fall off, whereas there is in EVE Online. Now, we can marry these two thoughts together. So let's jump back across to EVE Echoes. Now, to prove my point and kind of compound on this a little bit, let's have a look at the weapon tree here in EVE Echoes, the weapon skills. So looking at small laser operation, like with any operation, it is small laser damage and tracking speed. Upgrade, like any of the weapon upgrade skills, is damage, accuracy, fall off, and optimal range. And if you increase this via like advanced or expert, in both cases with operation and upgrade, you'll see that all those are now doing is adding a bit of heatsink activation time, the weapon upgrade module. There is no way in EVE Echoes in regards to skills that will reduce the amount of capacitor that your turrets are using, your lasers or your railguns. Now, you can do this with rigs, of course, with, I think it's the elutriation filters. I could be wrong on that. I don't really use railguns or lasers all that much, and those aren't particularly popular rigs. But there is a way that you can make things more cap stable with rigs, but not through skills. And this actually causes some interesting things to happen in the ship tree. Now, here I've got a couple of ships I've already prepared. Two side-by-sides here, the Abaddon and the Maelstrom. Now, these are both sort of the Tech 10 tanky battleships, I suppose you can call them. And if we scroll down to have a look at their capacitor banks here, you can see that the Maelstrom has a whopping 88,033 gigajoules of capacitor, but then the Abaddon has this utterly insane 16,684 gigajoules. Now, this is absolute madness. If you look at something in EVE Online, like the equivalents of these ships, they're actually pretty close in regards to the capacitor. Yes, the Abaddon does have more than the Maelstrom, but not double the amount effectively. Now, the argument here is that yes, actually, this is because the weapons of the Abaddon, lasers, use so much darn capacitor, which is true, they do. They chew through capacitor at an astonishing rate, especially beam lasers. And you could argue this is a form of internal balancing. But to tie all of this together, because it probably sounds a lot like I'm going on a lot of different tangents at the moment, essentially, if you're a drone pilot right now, you have to train 3 skills. If you just have decided you're done with frigates and destroyers and you're ignoring all those skills, say you started as Minmatar and you've gone for cannons, you suddenly get your first trainer cruiser, you go for the Vexor, you start to train into medium drones. You train the medium drone operations skill, you train the medium drone upgrade skill. That's not enough, you also need to train into the actual drone skill, and this is the only weapon system that has this. If you just wanted to go into lasers, railguns, or cannons, if you chose the Stabber, the Omen, or the, it's a Caracal for missiles, but yeah, even there, with missiles, it's still operation and upgrade only. If you chose any of the other cruiser branches, any other weapon in the game other than drones, you're only looking at operation and upgrade skills. Why is drone the only one that has this third option to it? Now, this leads me to a couple of conclusions. One, you can take this as sort of a way for drones to be balanced. That drones, theoretically, are some of the best weapons in the game for the sheer amount of versatility they have. If you are in for example, a Typhoon, then small missile and medium missile skills only really affect the fact that you're getting that little bit of extra ballistic control unit time. Same with small cannons, medium cannons, and large cannons if you wanted to fly, say, a Maelstrom. And this works across the board for all of these. Whereas if you're flying a Dominix, the fact that you've got large drone skills, small drone skills, and medium drone skills does come into use because you can change those mid-fight. You can sit there using large drones to kill off the battleships, and then, oh no, someone's jumped you in like an interceptor and they're trying to tackle you. You swap to medium or even small drones and you're still getting use out of those skills, and you're able to actually do that. Whereas if I'm in my Maelstrom with large turrets and an interceptor jumps in, I can't suddenly go, oh, hang on a second, let me swap those large turrets for mediums or smalls. It just doesn't work like that for any other weapon system. So this could just be an internal form of balancing drones, that you get that versatility at the cost of a whole bunch of extra skill points required to train into this third skill. However, I'm all for things that actually sort of affect players and allow you to make more meaningful decisions about how you level up and how you skill. And so there is a part of me that would like to see some additional skills added. If we're looking at missiles, for example, if you want to just get on with missiles the way they are, that's perfectly fine. I don't have missile skills on this character, it's on Captain Benzie. But if, for example, you're flying, say, a Caracal Navy issue, and you just want to use medium missiles, then okay, you have to deal with the fact that medium missiles don't have particularly good sort of application. Your explosion velocity and explosion radius are what they are. You can either fit target painters, you can rig for all of this, but there's nothing you can do skill-wise. None of these skills affect things like your explosion velocity or your explosion radius. Neither the operation nor the upgrade do. Now, this, again, it means that if you wanted to use, for example, large torpedoes, you kind of have to really rig into that and go really crazy to try and get that application to a point where it actually hits. Using stealth bombers, I really wish I could reduce the explosion radius and increase the explosion velocity of the large torpedoes that I'm using, but ultimately that's not an important skill for me flying my bellicose covert ops because of how that works, and the same with my Typhoon. My Typhoon already gets those application bonuses, and it's quite happy with its with its large missiles the way that they are. So if you added a third skill, and off the top of my head, let's call it something like warhead upgrades, where it is, or just call it missiles, heck, if you want to go with the sort of drone route here, and that would just be a skill that flat out reduces your explosion radius and increases explosion velocity. That's all the skill does. And there'll be times when you want that skill, like if you're using torpedoes or like larger weapons, you might decide that actually that's a really interesting skill for you to train, whereas if you're flying something like a Condor 2 interceptor, that's not important at all because your missiles already apply really, really well. If we went into lasers, then the laser skill would be something like capacitor control, or like the burst control, controlled bursts in EVE Online, that just reduces the amount of capacitor that your lasers use. You could try and make this a generic skill, that, you know, you have like in EVE Online, you have motion prediction, you have controlled bursts, and if you're using lasers or you're using railguns, you're going to want to have controlled bursts. Or you could just have a laser skill that just affects lasers and reduces the amount of capacitor that those lasers use. For certain ships and certain fits, you wouldn't need that skill. For other ships and fits, that becomes a useful skill. For cannons, you could have one that increases the accuracy fall off and, you know, the tracking speed. For railguns, you can have one that increases optimal range and tracking speed, or optimal range and slight reduction to capacitor. They're just other little skills that you could add into these different weapon trees here to give them that third skill like drones have. Now, maybe I'm overcomplicating things here, but to me, it's just one more skill per weapon. So you're looking at one additional skill for lasers, railguns, cannons, missiles, and theoretically decomposers, although no one uses them. So that's 4/5 skills, each with 3 levels. You're looking at 12 to 15 new skills being added to the game, and that's not a huge ask. And again, whether you go for this to be like a generic thing, and onto this, into the weapon technology tree here, we have one that just says turrets, and then you have skills that will affect all turrets, like with their capacitor or their accuracy fall off, and you just train the ones you want that way. Or whether we add a dedicated laser skill, a railgun skill, a cannon skill, and a missile skill. It could work either way here. This is definitely something that I know a lot of people have asked for, and I think it could add a lot of meaningful decisions into EVE Echoes. And it's not just this weapon skill that I would like to see added as well. Just to really springboard some ideas here, another one I would love to see somewhere under electronics, I don't know where you'd put it, probably under electronic systems, is a covert ops skill. Now, right now, if you fit a covert ops cloak, what it does is it reduces your sensors by about 40-odd%. So your ability to lock on is significantly reduced. You also have, obviously, a cooldown between decloaking and locking onto a target. You could have a covert ops skill, or just a cloaking skill, that reduces the time between dropping the cloak and locking on. That means that you could have have it so that rather than that, it allows you to re-cloak faster, because there's usually like a 30-second delay before you can cloak again. You could have it so that training this fully would take that all the way down to 5 seconds or something. You could even have it so that just having this skill trained means that when you have a covert ops cloak fitted, you have a lower penalty to your scan resolution. That's the word I'm looking for, scan resolution. And this isn't unheard of. This is very similar to using something like the Afterburner skill that reduces the amount of capacitor need, activation time, and the amount of speed increase you get from it. Basically, there you're getting activation time so that it cycles slower and it's much more capacitor friendly and things like that. So why couldn't you have this for like a covert ops cloak, where you're getting a penalty reduction to how much of the scan resolution it chews off? I don't know. I like the fact that Eve Echoes is simplistic in its skills. I like the fact that it's streamlined in its skills. You kind of know nice and easily what it is that you need to skill into when you decide what you want to do, but at the same time, I do still think that even within the bounds of that, we could add a few more skills to add a bit more versatility. And you might say to yourself, well, hang on, Benzie, isn't that just needless busy work? And the argument is, well, on one hand, I suppose you could say, yes, it is, but then aren't all skills exactly that? On the other hand, it adds versatility. I fly, for example, the bellicose covert ops a lot, and for me, I use covert ops cloaks a lot. It is my main playstyle, so having a skill that affects that would be really cool for me. On the other hand, there are plenty of other people who fly things like the Arbitrator covert ops, the bellicose covert ops, heck, the Celestis covert ops, and even rarely the Blackbird covert ops, who never fit a covert ops cloak to it, so they wouldn't need that skill. It adds that extra bit of versatility. And the final one that I've mentioned in videos before, but I would just like to have it added in here, is the electronic warfare skill. This still annoys me that it's stasis webifier capacitor need, warp disruptor capacitor need, energy Nosferatus, then at higher levels it's energy neutralizers and warp scramblers, and at the top again it's energy neutralizers and energy Nosferatus. I would much rather see this split outwards, that rather than calling it electronic warfare, you split this into two skills. One of them is propulsion jamming, which we kind of have down here, but add into propulsion jamming the ability to use stasis webifiers and the scramblers and disruptors. That should all be there in propulsion jamming. Electronic warfare should be renamed as capacitor warfare, and that then just becomes things like the Nosferatu and the neutralizers. You could even add in some stuff in there for like battery usage as well. My thoughts and opinions, I would love to hear yours in the comment section down below. I know this is a little bit of a weird video, it's just a soundboard for me to sort of suggest some ideas and see what you as the community thinks of this. Ultimately, you know, I've mentioned this in the past, when I speak to the developers, I give my own feedback. They say, hey Benzie, what do you think about X, Y, or Z? I will give my own personal feedback. I will then usually supply screenshots of my YouTube comment section, Discord, and things like that, where I kind of go, this is my thought and opinion. Here are some people who agree with me and their thoughts that kind of back this up, but at the same token, here are some counterpoints. I don't agree with what these people are saying, but you as the developers might agree that that's an interesting way of doing it, and you might see something that I don't. I tend to give feedback in both versions. I don't just give my own feedback, I give full community feedback, and I've promised that is always something I will continue to do. I am here to support the community of this game at large, not just myself. It's not about my playstyle, it's not about me getting what I want in the game, it's about this game being the best that it can be. And so I love getting feedback and thoughts and ideas from you. Even if I don't necessarily agree with them myself, I will still pass that to the developers for their consideration as well. So do let me know your thoughts and opinions on all of this in the comment section down below. Come find me on Discord. I love having these kind of chats. Maybe you've got some really cool ideas that you would like me to talk about in a future video. I think that could be really interesting, so hit me up, let me know, and we'll see what we can do. Anyway, folks, thank you for watching this one right the way to the end. Look forward to chatting to you all in the comment section. Happy sailing, and see you in New Eden.